Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 25. It says this. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? He replied. What is written in the law? He replied, how do you read it? He answered, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. You have answered correctly, Jesus replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Jesus, and who is my neighbor? In reply, Jesus said a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, where he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down to the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Then Jesus told him, go and do likewise. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You can have a seat. Today's parable is one of the most, well-known parables of all Jesus' 30-plus parables. If you're a child of the 80s, you can picture the flannel graph of Jesus, the man laying on the side of the road. He's got maybe a loincloth on. He's just beaten and bruised. And the picture of the Levite, the picture of the priest walking by, and then the little Samaritan and his donkey, they show up. These images, they're at least stuck in my mind. I'm a child of the 80s, so they're there. If you haven't had the opportunity to see a flannel graph recently, you're missing out. But Jesus, in this parable, the whole thing begins and it ends with a few questions. It begins with a question that's asked of Jesus, what do I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, what do you say? How do you understand this? What do you think? And what does the law say? And this expert in law replies with the Shema, like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus replies with another question, so who was a neighbor in this situation? And the answer that the expert in the law gives is one who has had mercy on him. The one who had mercy on him. Now, mercy, if we were to define it from our dictionaries, it is compassion or forgiveness shown towards someone who is within one's power to punish or harm. I found that to be an interesting definition of mercy, but it's what I found in the dictionary. Now, it reminds me of a game I used to play on the school bus on the way to school out in rural eastern Washington. We called the game Mercy, right? And where you interlock your fingers and hands with a person, your friend or neighbor or enemy, whatever, and then you're just twisting their hand and arm to try to hurt them until someone gives up, right? Someone cries, mercy, right? And so then eventually you release them. Like, that's what this definition sounds like. You have the ability to offer compassion and kindness to someone who you could fill with punishment and pain, and yet you choose not to. You offer mercy. But the mercy that we see in this story, the mercy of the word that was used there in the Greek, the elios, is the word mercy there. It actually has a different meaning. It's kindness or concern expressed for someone in need, especially when it's undeserved or unable to be repaid. This is the kind of mercy and kindness that we see displayed in God throughout the scriptural narrative. What we see in Jesus and what we see in the Samaritan in this story. We look at Luke chapter 10 again, verses 33 and 34. We see what this actually looks like. Mercy looks like a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and he bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. And then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. This is what mercy looks like. Seeing him, taking pity on him, going to him and caring for him. Jesus makes it clear that when this man was on the side of the road, he was seen by the priest and the Levite. They had no problem with their vision. It wasn't like what they saw the question wasn't if they saw the man on the side of the road. The question was, what did they see? Did they see a human? Did they see a person? Did they see a person created with dignity and worth? Or did they just see a distraction, a problem, something that slows them down or would make them dirty or keep them from the work that they've even been invited to do? I love what Eugene Cho says about dignity. He says that the opposite of dignity is dehumanization. When we stop seeing the dignity in people, the human in people, we begin to dehumanize them and see them as other or even nothing. And in some ways, that's what the priest and Levite did. They didn't see a person, they just saw a problem. They dehumanized the situation so they could walk on by. But the Samaritan, he took pity on him. Now, in NIV, it says he took pity, which sounds a lot like mild sympathy, which sounds like when my kids were little and they scraped their knee, and it was just like a little scrape, like not even a bleeding scrape, like just a little bit of scuffed skin, and they cry. And so I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Let me kiss it to make it feel better, right? Like, it's this kind of mild sympathy that's being offered. But the sympathy or this pity that is used here, it's better translated as compassion. In fact, most translations other than the NIV translate this pity as compassion. The definition of compassion in our dictionaries, it says this: a strong feeling of sympathy and sadness for the suffering or bad luck of others and a wish to help them. Frederick Buechner talks about it this way when he says this about sympathy, or compassion, it's that fatal capacity for feeling what it is like to live inside somebody else's skin. It is the knowledge that there can never really be any peace and joy for me until there is peace and joy for you. That's the compassion that we see in this story. It's the compassion of the Samaritan as he moves towards the man that had been beaten by the robbers. Jesus tells us that he went to him. I saw a video the other day. It was a scary video. It was a real video. It was in Portland. This guy was riding his bike down a bridge, side by side with another bike. I think they'd gotten lost from a group of bicyclists, and they probably shouldn't have been on the bridge in the first place. But a truck comes up behind him, and without maybe seeing him, just hits the guy on the bike, and the guy falls off the bike and is just laying there and in pain, kind of needing help. And the guy in the truck pulls over to the side, stops for a minute, and then drives off. And then one by one, cars just kind of kept pulling up and slowing down, but driving off. One stopped, backed up, got out of the truck, and went to help. Maybe similarly to the Levite and the priest, people had things to do. They didn't have time to stop, but one person got out of their car and they went to him. One person on this road to Jericho got off their donkey and went to this man and got near to him, got proximate to him, went beside him. That word neighbor that we read about when Jesus said who was a neighbor, it doesn't mean the person living next door. It actually means the person that is nearby, the person that is close, the person that is proximate. The Samaritan was being a neighbor. The priest and the Levite, they kept their distance, which is interesting because they knew the Shema, right? They knew that the Shema says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love your neighbor as yourself. But maybe they kept their distance in order to keep from being a neighbor, in order to keep from being nearby, because once you're nearby, once you're a neighbor, you have obligation and responsibility. But if you stay on the other side of the road, you can just walk by and go on your way. The end of this story that Jesus tells, after this Samaritan, he saw him and he had pity on him, compassion, he went to him. It says that he cared for him. It says that he offered what he had to ease the man's pain and suffering, oil and just care and bandaging his wounds. It wasn't a quick fix. It wasn't a cheap fix. It was a commitment to this man's flourishing, to his wholeness, to some sort of redemptive love, as we would see it. And that's the end of the story. It's a quick story. Jesus tells this short story to answer the questions that this expert in the religious law brought to him. But Jesus' story didn't answer his question exactly. His question was, who is my neighbor? But Jesus answered this question, who is a neighbor? Not who is my neighbor, trying to define the person, but who is a neighbor? What does it look like to be a neighbor? And the answer is the merciful. Coming back to the beginning of the idea of mercy being this this kindness that we can demonstrate to someone in need who might not even be able to pay us back and would have no obligation to. Jesus, in the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, said, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will show mercy." And his invitation is to go and do likewise. That's what he says to the expert in the law, and I believe that's what he says to us, is to go and do likewise. Go and offer mercy. Go and be a neighbor. Go and be the merciful, knowing that we've learned this from the most merciful, from Jesus, who saw us in our great need, who took compassion and pity upon us in the best sense of the word, who moved toward us and offered care for us and said, "Go and do likewise." Now this morning, I'm getting to the best part of the morning, although the story that Jesus told and the work that he did for us is probably the best. But I think you're going to enjoy having the team from Rwanda come up and share with us this morning. So let me invite them up. You guys can just start making your way. I'm going to keep talking as they do, so they can just walk quietly. But, when you take a trip like the one that we took a few weeks ago, when you leave the country and you go to a place like Rwanda, often you leave with a sense or an obligation or expectation that you are going to serve. You're going to be like a good Samaritan. You're going to a place to help someone in need. And there certainly is a level of that. Like when we go to Rwanda, we see great need. Some of the greatest need you could ever imagine, we will see there. And certainly we try to see that and have pity and compassion and move towards it and offer care. But we also have this relationship. What you'll hear in this morning is my friends share about their experience is not us going to save the day, but going to stand beside the people that we've come to know and to love and to cherish, not just as a project on the other side of the world, but as a family, that are a part of this family. And those of you who have children that you've partnered with their families, you know what that means as you receive letters back and forth. You're understanding what it begins to look like, to not just try to help and save people, but to partner in relationship for human flourishing and for God's kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. So to begin, I just want to invite everybody just to share who they are by introducing themselves. And then not everybody will share this morning, but some, and we'll give them a chance to do that too. So just say your name all the way down the line.
My name is Rebecca Doty.
Oh, I thought you were going to do it in Kenya, Rwanda.
Nitwa Rebecca.
Nailed it. Perfect.
My name is Lacey McNay.
Mwaramutse, Nitwa, Craig Mills.
Nitwa, Claudia Mills.
Okay, we're doing this. Nitwa Caitlin Potoff.
Nitwa Michael Doty.
Nitwa Mila Doty.
Nitwa Sam Ettinger.
Nitwa Natasha Ettinger. I will say this team, more than any team we've had in the past, worked really hard to learn Kenya Rwanda. It was impressive.
I need to redo
Oh, yeah.
Nitwa Lacey.
Well, you're going first, so you can just start right there.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read mine. So, good morning. Let's get my phone. There. Going to Rwanda with Journey Church team has been something I've dreamed about ever since Scott and Natasha moved there back in 2012. By December of last year, I had settled on going, but I'll be honest, as the trip approached, the timing couldn't have felt worse. This past year has been one of the most stressful of my life, and in the weeks leading up to the trip, anxiety weighed on me heavily, and I wasn't even sure if I was gonna make it onto the plane. In one of the moments of doubt, I was talking with my dad, and I told him the trip's coming at the worst possible time, and he replied with something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, maybe God knew exactly what he was doing, and this trip couldn't have come at a more perfect time. And he was right. From the moment we landed in Rwanda, I felt a freedom that I haven't experienced in months. It was as if stress was detoxing out of me. The beauty of the country, the joy and the warmth of the people, and most of all, their genuine love for the Lord, it reminded me of what truly matters. At one point during the trip, a friend had asked me how I was doing mentally, and I was able to tell them truthfully that I hadn't had a trace of anxiety the whole time. And their response was, God's restoring you in his own way over there. And that was what was happening. One of my biggest highlights of the trip was meeting my sponsor child, Claudette, and her family. The morning of the visit, I was actually pretty sick, and we debated if I was going to be able to make the trek up the steep hill to her home. But having traveled halfway across the world, I knew I couldn't miss it, and I'm so glad I went. Sitting with Claudette and her family, hearing their stories, sharing in fellowship, singing, giving small gifts. It was one of the most meaningful moments of my life. Our connection through sponsorship and our shared love for Jesus will bind us together forever. This trip reminded me that God's timing is always perfect, even when it feels inconvenient. Rwanda showed me freedom, restoration, and joy, and for that, I will always be grateful. And I hope everyone gets a chance to go someday.
Awesome. Thank you, Lacey.
So my experience going into it, I guess, didn't really know what to expect. I knew what our role was, but had no idea the impact it would have on my heart. I think Natasha said that maybe it's a 50-50 our heart impact and their heart, but I think I was more on the 75-25 ratio. Just amazing to be able to be there, to be present, to be in their culture, in their world. And thank you all for the prayers and support while we were there. Definitely felt. For me, one of the ways I process things is maybe a little odd, but it's through kind of the rhymes and rhythms of that occur in my head. And so I put together a few different thoughts on my experience there. And one is looking at the Western culture, looking at my culture, and looking at the culture in these villages, and how different we are, but how similar we are. I don't know if that's, it's up there. So, and then I'll share a little bit about the picture as well. So just some thoughts from me on my observations. I'm concerned about my comforts and my conveniences of the day. I'm focused on survival and finding a new way. I will be late for work. I have drop-off today. I am walking 3 miles to school each way. I have blocked off 15 minutes for my friend. I will sit with you today until the sun says to end. My mind races with anxieties and fear. My bones ache. Is the end of the day near? My hobbies are hiking, biking, and running. My life is hiking, biking, and running. My cell phone went off during prayers today. My cell phone went off during prayers today. This is one technology that they've adapted in the rural part of Rwanda. We can learn so much from each other in this space. And with the love of Christ and the hope in God's grace, together we can make a better place. And this picture is my favorite. It was just an unplanned encounter with this gentleman, and there was one word spoken that created this experience. And it was after a long day. It was the day of Lacey's home visit. We did another home visit. So we're coming back out of the mountains, and we park our cars down on the road in a flat area. And the cars are an oddity there, so that attracts a crowd. And then the Mzungus attract a crowd as well. That would be the white Westerners. Usually a crowd gathered around, and this gentleman came up to me. He's got a walking stick, maybe was the elder of the community, and pointed at me, and I was wearing a hat, which he is wearing in this picture, and he pointed at my hat. And I took it off and said, would you like this? And so he put it on, but still a very stern face. Especially I thought the elders had very stern looks on their faces until you spoke a word that they could understand, and a lot of times they laughed at it because it was probably butchered, but so they wanted a picture taken, and so he and I are together, and the team taking the picture said Seka, which means smile. And he just lit up, and then he just started laughing, and the whole village, the whole town started laughing with him. And it was just amazing experience to connect like that with somebody that was totally unplanned. It just showed God's presence that was there throughout the whole experience.
All right, so my takeaway, I'm going to just read mine too, of our time in Rwanda is that our presence there, even though it was short, we were in the village 4 days, was very meaningful, not just to us, but our presence to them was meaningful and meant a lot. On several different occasions, I had interactions with some older women in the villages. Some of these were even, as our cars were driving through, we would drive slow, and by waving or saying Maraho, and then they would come over to the car and they would grab my arms or grab hands or do, praise hands. And just by that, there weren't really words, but it just relayed their gratefulness to us for being there. It was not because of anything I had done or anything that the team had done, but it was just that we were there. Our presence showed them that Journey's Church's commitment to the kids in that community made a difference, and it made a difference to the children and their families and the whole community. And I don't know if I'm guessing it's because they're older women, and they've seen the changes that have happened for the kids and the families and their community. And I think it was 9 years, Tosh, 10 years, 9 years ago, that partnership was started in Caballero. Additionally, the children's presence and their desire to want to be with us was really special. Everywhere we went, there were groups of kids following us, holding our hands, sometimes multiple kids on each hand, running alongside us on the trails as we went up the trails. They're just all running all around us. We're breathing hard, and they're just running. Chasing behind our cars, jumping on the backs of our cars. They just wanted to be near us and by us. And then also finding any space they could to join in the home visits that we did. They would just fill in the corners of the homes or in the little front courtyards of the homes. Anyone that was around wanted those children. They wanted to be with us. And then there's just so much joy in that, in their joy, and sharing that with us and our presence. So, okay.
As I was thinking about what I wanted to share, I was having a hard time because, one, I want to do our trip justice, and also, two, those of you who know me know that if I started speaking, I would never stop talking. So I was thinking, what better way to give you a glimpse into our adventure than to read some bits and pieces of my journal that I wrote in every day when we were there. So I'm going to start on day 3, which was our first day out in the Caballero village. Day 3, woke up and had such good coffee with cinnamon rolls and fruit. Then we drove the bumpy road out to Caballero. The Indiana Jones ride was mentioned multiple times. The children greeted us similarly as the kids in Mbabe did, with an English song, dance performance, and of course, it ended with them bringing us all up to dance. Then we played basketball, and Mila and I got cornered by so many kids. Some stared, others smiled, and some laughed and giggled. We then ate lunch and got introduced to many leaders and teachers. On the way back, we stopped at a market, and that was fun. We did our normal night routine, which consists of dinner, practicing our song for church, talking through tomorrow's itinerary, then sharing things about our day or the devotional we all did, and ending the night with games and candy. Overall, my day was filled with laughter, a sad reality check about how privileged I am, and sweet little girls holding my hand everywhere we went. Day 4. We started the day by visiting sponsor families. They were all very grateful that we came so far to see them and gave thanks to God many times. At the houses, they sang for us, and so we decided to sing the doxology back to them. At the second house, they sang the doxology back in Kinyarwanda, and I felt and heard the body of Christ in such a tangible way. After that, we ate lunch and drove to where they're building a church. It's so crazy that they come with us wherever we go. Random children and some adults will just walk with us, so by the time we get to wherever we're going, we have a huge crowd behind us. Hearing the kids giggle made me stop for a moment and think, this is what Jesus means when he said that the children are the kingdom of God. In that moment, I realized that giggling, hallelujah, and amen are all universal. After dinner, a fast spoke to us about how grateful he was today. He said that we are all unique, and God has brought us together. Our team also had a deep talk about what we've been thinking. I realized something today about the people of Rwanda. Their world is small, but they live life so big. And then I'm going to share from our very last day. Rwanda 2025. It's our last day here in this wondrous country. Our past 2 days were filled with an incredible hike, a safari through the jungle, and hours of singing on the bus to keep us from going fully insane. Today we will be visiting the Genocide Memorial, then shopping, and taking off to Amsterdam in the evening. I'm sad to leave. I have learned so many things about Rwanda, and I have fallen in love with all its quirks. People use their horns and brights instead of blinkers. Moms wrap babies around their backs with cloth. People use motos instead of cars. Every person yells Mzungus as they see us driving by. People look into your eyes when they shake your hand and don't let go even when it gets awkward. And any kid will take your hand and hold it as you scale the world's greatest mountain. I'm hoping this won't be goodbye, so instead I'll say this. Murakoze, thank you, Rwanda.
Good morning. I promised Scott I would keep this short, but since he's sitting over the end, and I've got the microphone, and I felt led by God's presence this morning to share what I had in my heart, and my story will be a little bit different than the rest of you on the team here. I was privileged to be able to go with my wife there on the end next to Scott and my daughter here. And if you're sitting there in the church thinking there's no way in the world I would travel to a third world country for 24 hours on a plane, let alone with your spouse, your kids, then you and I have a lot in common. My story starts 3 years ago. I sent this text to a close family friend. I admire your passion for God, and I want to have that same spiritual journey, to be a spiritual leader. Today I've realized I couldn't witness to a single person if I tried. I'm at the lowest point of my life. Watching my family and I go through an experience is even harder. But God is in control, and the enemy's not going to win. This person replied with, I'm bringing your family by name to the Lord today, and I'm committed to doing so in the days to come. As you can see, I didn't have it all together. I never went to a Bible study regularly, never attended a men's retreat, didn't include God in my daily decisions, and I made a choice to make God a priority. God used the following passage in the Bible, which I'll share with you, to help me change my life, supported by my wife there on the end, who has always been there for me. I'll make this a short, very quick summary. 1 Samuel 14. It's about the story of Jonathan, Saul's son, who takes bold action against the Philistines. Minor detail, he doesn't tell his father about the trip. And God uses it to turn the key tide for the battle of Israel. Jonathan doesn't wait for perfect conditions. He believes God can use him and another person, known as the armor bearer. I would not want to be that person. He climbs into a nearly impossible fight, sensing opportunity and trusts God with the outcome. And this wasn't in my notes, but as Scott is sharing here today, think about the story he was sharing about the truck driver of the Good Samaritan on these 4 points I took away that I've used for the rest of from that point forward. Number 1, seize divine moments. Don't miss the chance God puts in front of you. Number 2, act. Before you have all the answers, act before you have all the answers. Faith means moving forward before all the pieces fit. Number 3, don't be paralyzed by fear. Courage is acting even when you're afraid. Number 4, trust God for the outcome. Our job is obedience. God's job is results. So in closing, I'd go back every year. It was the best trip I'd ever been on. A life-changing experience that shows what an awesome God we serve. The work that Scott, Natasha, and the family and the ministry of this church has done there is truly amazing. Yes, there are some tangible things, buildings, basketball courts, but the true reason is best summarized by 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up just as you are doing. Being present, listening, encouraging, standing with others, we remind people that they are not alone.
Going to Rwanda this summer truly was an unforgettable experience for me. Seeing firsthand that there is a whole other part of the world living a completely different life than us was honestly an uncomfortable feeling at first. I felt guilty for all we have here at home. We have it so easy here in the U.S. I couldn't get over how hard they work, the kids included in their everyday lives. It didn't take long for these feelings to turn to shared joy with the kids of Rwanda and the villages we were visiting. They didn't seem to be bothered one bit by their everyday lives and tasks and responsibilities. The walking they had to do to make it anywhere they wanted to go, the very little they have to entertain themselves, it truly was a blessing to witness. These kids' joy, laughter, and love literally pours out of them. It was life-changing to witness. For me personally, the connections with the kids was my favorite part of the trip. Yeah, we went on a hike and a safari, but nothing can compare to the joy that filled their faces just seeing us drive down that dirt road headed to the village. For me personally, the connections between the children in our church group was amazing to witness. The kids did not care that we were strangers to them. They welcomed all of us, grabbed our hands, and we were never alone. They were so full of love for us, just because we were there with them. They loved to hold our hands. After just a couple of days being in the village, we could recognize the kids. We had some that followed us every day as we drove up the road, and others that welcomed us as we pulled in. Songs and dancing was a normal scene to arrive to. I don't think I can recall a time when I wasn't being surrounded by kids or my hand wasn't free from being held. It was hard to say goodbye the last day, not knowing when we would see them again. Such a short amount of time left such a big impact that will be with me through life. The children's giggles are unreal. Replaying moments that we got to have with the kids truly makes me laugh and smile inside. I will never feel more overjoyed and fulfilled with the Holy Spirit more than I did on this trip, and I can't wait to go back.
So I wanted to share kind of an experience I had with the cultural difference and the things that it kind of taught me about myself or our culture generally. And actually, Caitlin kind of mentioned the story earlier, but just a little bit of context. Rwandan culture is a lot different than ours. Things move a lot slower. Like being late is never a problem. Most people travel by foot or bike, so they just move a lot slower. And so in general, the pace of life is a lot slower, which can be really challenging for our like American efficiency-oriented minds. And one example of that slower pace that I recall is when Caitlin talked about singing the doxology. When we would do it, we tried to make a habit of singing at the home visits because singing is just really common in Rwanda. They do it all the time, not just in church, but in life too. And so we would sing the doxology, and they had the same song, in Rwanda. And so one time they sang after we did, and they sang every verse of the doxology, which I don't know if you know. There's like 4 or 5 or like a ton of them. And so it took like several minutes, and by the end I was like, another verse? Really? Like, is this ever going to end? Like, we have places to be. And that was kind of a good heart check for me. I was like, really, dude? You're getting annoyed that people are singing and praising the Lord? Like, come on, you're putting your plans in front of that. And so it kind of made me think about the way that I live my life here, and I kind of asked myself, what can I learn from them? What did this experience tell me about the way I live my life? And I think a lot of times or maybe other people can relate to this too, but I worry more about time management, even to the expense of worshiping God, which is kind of crazy. I put true and genuine worship into a church box that like we can worship here, but then that doesn't happen outside of church, and that is certainly not true in Rwanda. And then I also realized that my patience for things being done differently than how I would do them is really low. This trip to Rwanda brought that out of me a lot, and it was a really good exercise to release control and let things be done differently than the way I would do them. Thanks, Mom. And then I also asked myself, what can I, or maybe we, learn from our brothers and sisters in Rwanda? And I think I learned that my heart posture towards God matters a lot more than how efficiently I spend my time. God doesn't care if I do things quickly as long as my heart is open to Him. And then I also learned that making time for genuine worship takes intentionality in our culture. It's like, it's not easy to create the time for that because we're oriented so differently, and so that is challenging. And then lastly, this was a good reminder about being open to the Spirit rather than rigidly following plans. So overall, it was a really good challenge for my own kind of the way I think about life.
Thanks, team. I'm going to kind of wrap us up here by talking specifically about sponsorship in Rwanda. Many of you sponsor kids in Rwanda. I have on the first slide right here, this is one of the girls that the Ettinger family sponsors. Her name is Happy. On the left, that picture was taken either, I think, 2017 or 2018. And then this picture was snapped. I think Becca snapped it. Actually, I didn't even see this moment, but this was when Happy saw Scott must have been for the first time when we first arrived. Look at how tall she is now. Scott sent me that picture when he was in Rwanda without us, and he said, I remember the text. I tried to go back and find it, but I couldn't find his exact words. But basically, this was the poorest family I visited. We're going to have to sponsor her. And so we started right away when he got home, and that was in 2017 or 18, and then here she is today. And I was struck this time by just the power and the impact that sponsorship has. There is just a visible physical impact. If you can just look at the cleanliness of Happy in both of these pictures, it's night and day. On the next slide is a picture of Happy's family. So that was back in 2017. And then this was recently, again, just the cleanliness. But I saw in them this time, and I've seen it every time we go, more joy. I feel like even with the parents, there's more pride and dignity. That was even a word that Scott used this morning that I wanted to really highlight, the changes that I see in them. On the next slide is a picture of another boy that we... Are we laughing at the Ettinger children? They're tiny. In 2013, this is not at Caballero, but at another village, Mbabe, where we worked when we lived in Rwanda and started sponsoring kids. So some of you who have known us for a long time also sponsor kids out at Mbabe. And we started sponsoring Jean Perrin when we moved back from Rwanda. So this is a picture with Jean Perrin on the left right before we left Rwanda. And then this was this time. And so it has been 12 years that we've been sponsoring him. He's in high school now. The kids have grown up. Actually, go to the next slide. Do I have that one? Okay, never mind. Go back. I don't have it. There's another one where I had Jean Perrin and Brady go back to back because they're basically the same height. They're the same age. So we've been able to sort of watch the boys grow up, which has been really fun. But Jean Perrin is in high school now. And he has stayed in high school, and he's doing well. And we got to see his mom. She's a single mom, and she's always so overjoyed to see us and so grateful for what we have done. I'm so proud because he's 16 or 17 years old, and he has stayed in school. Not all kids in Rwanda do stay in school. And we just spent one day visiting Mbabe, and a lot of the high schoolers spoke while we were there visiting, and I was struck by what one girl said. It was I wish I had written it down word for word, but it was something like, I work hard at school because I want to make my sponsor proud. And that was not an impact when we started this that I had really thought through, that they may work harder academically and in school because they have a sponsor back here and they want to make you proud. And so the long-term, a lot of the kids we sponsor out at Caballero aren't in high school yet, but the long-term impact of this sponsorship was really evident this time. Now we can go to the next slide. So, you know I'm always pushing for more sponsors. So while we were there, when I left, I only had 2 packets left. I have two unsponsored kids because Journey Church has so significantly stepped up. But so while we were there, I was like, well, we might as well find more kids to sponsor. So we found 12 more, and this is one of them. This is Aime. Aime's name means beloved. Aime lives with his grandparents. This is his grandma in this picture on the left and on the right. His grandpa wasn't there while we were visiting. They rent just one room. It's made of mud bricks, as you can see, and it was about, Lacey, what would you say, 6 or 7 feet by 6 or 7 feet? Not very big inside. And that's the only room that they have for 3 people, the grandparents and this little boy. When he was born, his mom gave birth in a hospital and then handed the baby over to the father. The father took Aime and handed Aime to his parents and left, and he has never been seen again. And so Aime's grandparents are raising him. They were the worst living conditions that I have ever seen. The regs on the floor are where the 3 of them sleep. There was a little bit of space next to the regs where a few items were stored. And Aime needs a sponsor. So if you are interested in sponsoring a child, I have Aime's packet with me. Thankfully, thank you to those of you who give faithfully to Journey Church. We have a local and global missions budget. And so every time we go to Rwanda, we bring a few $1,000s in cash, knowing that we're going to leave it there for special projects. So Aime and his grandparents are going to have a house, and it's going to have more than one room. We left money for that. We asked for an estimate. They said $1,500, so we left $1,500 for that, and we will be awaiting photos and videos of what that looks like when it's complete. So things will begin improving for Aime's family now, but long-term impact, he will need a sponsor. Okay, the next picture, this is Pacifique Mugisha. She's on the left, and she needs a sponsor as well. Her mom's name is Mayombe. Mayombe is 23 years old, and she has these two children. The youngest is 1.5. When Mayombe was a teenager, her mom took off, leaving Mayombe and her 2 teenage siblings to fend for themselves. They rented a room near a trading center. Both of these children have 2 different fathers, and both took off once Mayombe was pregnant, leaving her to raise them both on her own. Mayombe, however, is currently married to a man named Peter, and they've been married 1 year. He was not there because he was looking for work, so we were not able to meet him. But he is not the biological father of either of the girls, but he married Mayombe and loves those girls like his own. Mayombe called Peter blameless. In the Rwandan culture, that is not common, and so that is a true blessing for her. Mayombe and her girls have had a rough go, and so sponsorship would help the whole family so much. So if you felt something in you and you would like to sponsor a child or sponsor more than one child, I joke that every time we come back, we pick another kid to sponsor. So if you want to add one to your family, I have all of these packets with me today, and I'll be out front after the service.
Well, thank you, everybody, for sharing. I'm going to dismiss them in a second, but one, would you thank them? Because it's not easy to sit up in front of people and do that. And then 2, just a reminder that as we went as like the Journey Church family. Like this is not just a team that goes, but a church family that's going and representing one another. And so your children, if you sponsor children, they were given hugs by us, and we took pictures with them, and we made connections with them and heard stories from them. And so just know some of that you were represented and loved well, so that those that you partner with know that their family on this side knows them and loves them and cares for them. So thank you for all of that support and care.